And it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Charlie Giancarlo, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Pure Storage. And Daniel, both of us have been really keeping an eye on Pure. And the crazy part is that over the last 5 years, they came in and really decommoditized a market that looked a little bit stagnant, and I think really injected a tremendous amount of innovation and competition into the system.
Yeah, as I've tracked and followed Pure Storage, I've been really impressed by the company's focus on customer experience and satisfaction, differentiating around that, and really trying to innovate the products and services to make storage an exciting space to be in. And so far, so good. But you know what? Let's hear some more from Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. Welcome to day 2 of the 6.5 Summit. I really appreciate you joining us.
Hi, Pat. It's fantastic to be here. Great to see you again. And you're always so kind. So thank you for having us on.
Yeah, I have to start off with this, a little bit of a personal question. How are you feeling right now? You came down with COVID-19.
Yeah, it's very kind of you to ask. Yeah, no, I had the full COVID-19 experience in March, and 12 days of fever and a month of recovery. It's a nasty virus, and so whatever the audience hears on television, it's all true. So they should. The current methodology for gaining antibodies is not worth the trouble. I can tell you that. But I'm back to 100%. Recently went for a 17-mile hike in the mountains, and wasn't feeling any ill effects. So I think I can. My doctor says clean bill of health. But it was certainly the sickest I'd been in my life. It's nasty.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that, Charlie. And you do look great. And beside that, you've just shocked me with the 17-mile thing. And I think I need to reassess my exercise regimen here. But let's dive right in. So many companies are dealing with issues they've never seen before due to the pandemic. How is the current environment impacting your customers at Pure? You're talking to them every day.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, and it's affecting different customers differently, and I think we know this, right? I mean, there are whole segments of the economy now that are basically out of business. Travel and entertainment. A lot of the commercial space are the amount of activity they have in their business is dramatically down. But let me give you some examples because I think it's important. Maybe a little bit of a potpourri of different examples. Certainly in the first quarter, there was a scrambling to deal with all of the new situations, the work from home, the educate from home, the enhanced amount of web traffic that was taking place, the enhanced amount, frankly, and unfortunately, of cyber attacks that were taking place. And so many customers needed emergency shipments. And we were very fortunate in having a very solid and functional supply chain during this period of time. We made a lot of emergency shipments to customers, sometimes in less than 24 hours from first phone call. And that was really critical for many customers who had to deal with 100% of workers from at home. We have other customers that found that their current environment couldn't handle the load, right? And so again, we had to really support customers in terms of being able to enhance their overall performance. We see another set of activities that are very interesting. We've had a as a service offering now for about almost 2 years.
Yeah.
That was of interest to a number of customers, but frankly, it was about 10 or 20% of our conversations with customers were about as a service. Within the last quarter, that's jumped to 80%. And the reason is, I think, quite straightforward. Customers need capacity now, but they're still planning on moving to the cloud sometime in the future. And so the idea of buying new capacity, locking them into 5 years or more, was just not something that they wanted to entertain. And with our as a service offering, customers only buy what they use. And we have a unified subscription model between on-prem and the cloud. And so they could use it all on-prem today and all in the cloud tomorrow, and it's all one unified subscription. So that's worked out very well overall. But to answer your question in another way, customers are still reeling. I think right now they are going through a reprioritization of their spend and of their projects. And I think the biggest reprioritization that's taking place right now is, and I think this is true with all CEOs, comes under the classification of never let a good crisis go to waste. And we're using this as an opportunity to drive digital transformation in our companies. And that's what we're seeing. So it's gone from planning around, an extension of the same old, to, okay, what's going to drive us to be able to engage with our employees and our customers in a more digital way. And so that's taking priority now.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of those similar things, broad base. Charlie, you were one of the only infrastructure companies that could actually supply its customers.
Yes.
And I'd like to talk about that a little bit afterwards, but it's really phenomenal. And your timing couldn't have been better to have this SaaS capability either.
You're right.
To be able to buttress it. No, by the way, for you, SaaS isn't free. I mean, you have to invest a lot of capital to make that happen, and it's impressive, even though you didn't know that your customers would need that so quickly. It was really great that you were there. Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe we can drill down into maybe some specific areas or customers, some real success stories. I think people really want to hear success stories out there.
Yeah. Well, there was I'll give you a couple of examples. One that we're particularly proud of. I won't be able to name them, but one of a very, very large collaboration network that many of your customers are using, one of the biggest in the world, found that their infrastructure couldn't handle the higher demand. One can only imagine the increase in demand for obviously the thing we're using right now, right? The collaboration and video network.
Yeah.
And their infrastructure couldn't handle the load, and their existing suppliers, we were a relatively small supplier to them at the beginning of the year. But their primary suppliers were unable to either repair the performance of their existing product or ship additional product into the customer. The customer turned to us, and literally in less than 24 hours, in 4 different regions around the world, we were able to ship them equipment and have it installed and in place in less than 24 hours. Now, I just want to call out 2 things. Call out 2 things, or 3 actually. One was, yes, our ability, our supply chain's resiliency during this period of time. But 2 others, that is our ability of our teams to be able to deliver the product, because of course this is going to lights out data centers. But we're also the only company that can go from the delivery of a cardboard box to having that system be in production in less than 2 hours, and often less than 1 hour, through entirely remote configuration. We're really the only company that can do that. So even if our competitors could supply, it would have taken them a day or 2 to be able to install their system. So it was our focus on simplicity, our focus on high degrees of automation, API-driven management, and also, frankly, a very highly customer-focused organization.
Yeah, it's incredible related to web conferencing. I mean, we've seen astronomical increases, not just 4 or 5x or 10x. We're looking at 50x increases in the load. And for governments, it's funny, sometimes we talk about work from home and school from home, but what we don't talk about is governing from home. Which, by the way, zero governments, at least in the U.S., are governing from home. They had to adopt a completely new model.
So let me talk about a government. This is another great example. One of the largest states in the country, again, to be unnamed, but one of the largest states in the country, right at the beginning of the COVID period, had a huge ransomware attack, locked up their systems, and they needed new systems immediately. The amazing thing about this was they couldn't cut, obviously the governments have their own ways of operating. and they're not necessarily known for speed. They couldn't cut us a PO. They couldn't. All we could get was trust us, and we shipped. 24 new systems, had it installed and in place within 3 days, and all of this was done basically on even a virtual handshake, not even a real handshake. But we got that delivered to them and up in operation, and really, it allowed them to continue to operate, as a state government, because they frankly would not have been able to operate.
Yeah. So as you were talking installation, and then I was thinking, well, wait a second, people aren't supposed to be near each other when they do installation. So that brings me to my next question. We've been talking a little bit in the third party of your customers, but I'm curious, how has the COVID crisis impact Pure Storage?
Yeah, well, we're about 97-98% work from home right now. We do have some essential workers. Obviously, if you're testing hardware, you need to come into the facility. But even in the facility, we're following all the local guidelines. So 100%, wearing masks 100% of the time. Unless you're eating. We've done. There are so many things that companies have done to enable this, right? So we've increased the number of air exchanges per hour. We have hand washing stations, almost, throughout the enterprise. We have, our cleaning contractors come in multiple times a day to wipe everything down. There's a lot of activity that goes into making the workplace a safe environment. But what's also happened is, and I think your customers know this, the entire B2B selling and marketing experience is entirely different.
That's right.
I tease my sales guys. I tell them they're all inside sales now, and most of them graduate from inside sales into account executives, but we're all inside sales now. The interesting thing was certainly for the first quarter, getting access to key decision makers was made easier. You knew where they were, and their calendars were effectively clean, and we were able and continue to be able to have very effective, briefings and meetings with our customers during this period of time. Now we're all, of course, exhausted by Zoom, right? And in fact, there are days where I actually walk out of my office somewhat delirious. And I would say that, what we've seen with our team is that our individual contributors often feel more productive at home, but our managers are exhausted. It's a very trying time, I think, for people managers who, have to keep track of and in touch with all of their employees on an individual basis, in addition to being on a group basis. So, we've implemented mandatory days off. We have to insist that people take vacation. There's a variety of, so the degree to which we have to be in touch with each individual employee has gone way up, as a function of this.
Actually, I really appreciate you sharing that and the human element of this. I was thinking of your salespeople. I'm assuming their T&E expenses are tremendously lower than they normally would be. But let's close out this conversation like we started, Charlie. I'm curious. You talked a little bit. You're doing well. You're exercising and getting more mileage in than I am. Which means I need to go reassess what I'm doing. But has it influenced your decision making or your leadership at all?
Well, it has, and it has in a way that's maybe a little bit different than your question. It's not so much my illness, but because of my illness, I've done a lot of reading on the Spanish flu and other pandemics. And I highly recommend, if you don't mind, I'll plug a book. I have no interest in it, but The Great Influenza. If you read about the 1918 Spanish flu, and it's given me a historical perspective on pandemics. And the first thing is it's made me a believer that this is going to be with us for some time.
Yeah.
So this is not a quick, 1 or 2 quarter thing. This is going to be with us for some time. And the steps that we need to take to keep our team safe, to stay in business, obviously, to maintain a sense of our society and culture is very, very important. And so, getting some historical context for this, pandemics are not new. That's the most amazing thing is we've really not had a serious one in 100 years. But the world has known in the past how to deal with pandemics, and we've kind of forgotten that, given our 100-year lucky streak. And so we need to come back to terms with how to handle pandemic. We need to make sure that we can persevere through the next year or two while we get through this in the best way we can, but really accept the world for the way it is right now as we go forward.
I appreciate that, Charlie, and I'm definitely going to pick that book up. It's number 3 on the read list, but I think it may be slowly moving its way up here. So, Charlie, we've reached the end of our time, and I just want to thank you for sharing not just the insights, but the wisdom and leadership that I think our listeners can take advantage of, and really this long-term perspective on pandemics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat. Take care. Thanks for the interview.
Absolutely. So this is Patrick Moorhead from More Insights and Strategies signing off with Pure Storage's Charlie Giancarlo for the 6.5 Summit.